Happy Halloween, everyone. It's Aunt the Astro Chick, and I wanted to talk to you about the dark season. It is here, folks. We are in the depths of the dark. This weekend, daylight savings time ends, so we are going to be having sunsets at 5:30, and we are going to be going into retrograde cycles as we go into November. So it's a very internalized dark season, and I learned a long time ago, it seems like a long time ago, but the importance of understanding the dark half of the year. You know, the Celts look at it as the beginning of their year because the last harvest is actually the end of the year. So this in-between time of Halloween and Samhain, or whatever you call it, the Days of the Dead, this is like the transition from the old into the new. And that's why we honor our dead who have transitioned from life into death. And we should honor both spheres of not just death, but the promise of life, right? Because we see when things go, when things pass, new things come. Life is a circle. It's never ending. There's a process to generational growth, right? So it's very interesting to think of this time as like connecting with our roots, but then also spreading out our branches, right? And Halloween is a time of storytelling. And I thought that I would tell this story. It's not like a funny story, it's not a happy story, but it's a very important story. And the themes of the Taurus Full Moon that I wanted to talk about were very feminine in their nature. So this is a warning. The story I'm about to tell you is it involves death. It involves women's health. It involves blood. It involves suffering, and it involves friendship as well. So if those are your digs, you could stick around for the story. If not, thanks for stopping by. I'll see you in the next. So the Taurus full moon of November is known as the Beaver moon. And in 2021, November 19th was the Taurus full moon. It was an eclipse, so a lunar eclipse. So it was a blood moon. And so therefore, this story is called The Bloody Beaver Moon. On November 18th, 2021, I had a telephone call from my doctor's office. Now, a little context, I had been very sick. I had been ignoring it for a long time, like a good woman. You know, it'll just go away or whatever, until it got to the point where I could not maintain it anymore. And this day that I'm about to explain, this day to night threshold, this is also a threshold story, because the story is from the 18th into the 19th when the lunar eclipse occurred. And so this is about liminal spaces, you know, and also about transformative energies of this time of year. This night, I was diagnosed with something called menorrhagia. Menorrhagia is a bleeding disorder that women suffer for a variety of reasons, but my particular reason was that I had fibroids. I had a fibroid, but it had grown and enveloped my whole uterus. So I had like a little tumor baby inside of me, and I'm not sure if it was my body trying to expel it or it was attached to a major blood vessel, but it was killing me. And I bled one time for 45 days. And it was the scariest time of my life. It was very horrific and frightening because I didn't have much control, because I was so weak. I couldn't eat. I couldn't hardly walk. I had to stop driving. And it's almost as if I couldn't control my body. And it got to the point where I had to go to the doctor. So I did. And they took a whole bunch of tests. And November 18th of 2021, they called me in the afternoon. And they were like, hey, we got your test results. Are you still bleeding? And I replied with a resounding yes, because I told them I couldn't, that's why I went to the doctor. It had gotten so bad. I couldn't. And then they took my blood because I was part of the test, but it was just, I felt so depleted. And they informed me that I needed to immediately go to the emergency room because I needed a blood transfusion. I had never had a blood transfusion, and I was a little freaked out because I had let things go for so long. I wasn't really in a great state of mind to react very very well to having to go to the emergency room for a blood transfusion. So my son took me, and it takes a few hours to get set up because we all have different factors in our blood, our type, RH factor, antigens, and stuff like that. So it was like 3 or 4 hours before they got blood. But what they did for me was they also diagnosed me. So it was at that time that I got diagnosed with menorrhagia, and that I had an ultrasound, and they located the tumor, the fibroid. They call them fibroids to make it sound nice. It's a tumor, okay? And it was like a baby inside of my uterus. And so it was so big. And I look back on this, and it's just like, yeah, I should have taken care of it a long time ago, but I let it get to the point of no return, where I had to do something about it or I was going to die. And I did almost die during this whole charade. It was like a 5 month from the time of diagnosis until I could get my surgery. And there were a couple really thin times where I almost bit the bullet, Sorry for that connotation. I really felt like I was falling into the nothingness because I had lost so much blood. The reason that they sent me that night on the 18th to get a blood transfusion is because my hemoglobin was like 4, which a healthy, normal, what is normal, but a healthy woman, it's about 11 or 12. So I was severely drained. Obviously, I felt like a vampire who had been buried for 1,000 years and, dry as a chip coming out of the ground. And so they gave me some fluids as well because I was a little dehydrated. And so I was there for hours, right? And remember, this is the night of, or let's say the full moon lunar eclipse hit at like 2:30 in the morning of November 19th. And I was there until like the early morning. So I was there during the eclipse. And I sent my son home because it was very late, and all you can really do when you're getting a blood transfusion is sit there and take the blood. And you have to do it slowly, otherwise you're going to blow a vein. So I was just being patient and sitting there and trying to feel alive again. And my best friend Christina calls me. Now, this isn't unusual because we call each other all hours of the day, sometimes 2 o'clock in the morning, right? And we reminisced about this the other day, and she gave me permission to tell this part of the story because I have my own part, which is the whole blood transfusion. But there's another part to this story that involves other women in my life. The Taurus moon is exalted. It's ruled by Venus, has a very feminine, womanly vibe to it. And so this night, my best friend calls me to tell me that she's in a hospital and that her best friend, Jenny, had passed away. And we don't remember what we said to each other. We just remember that we spoke. Like, she remembers that she called me. I remember her calling me. But I don't think I told her that I was in the hospital, only because it was devastating enough for her best friend, Jenny. Like, Christina's my best friend, but Jenny is Christina's best friend. So they grew up together as girls. They were more like sisters. They were both Virgos, they lived together. Christina took care of Jenny, at the end. And so it was a very difficult evening for her. She was traumatized by that whole situation. And our other friend, Carrie, was with her when that all happened. So I'm so grateful to Carrie that she was there and that Christina was not alone. Because Taurus is Christina's 12th house. And the 12th house rules things like hospitals and suffering and the darkness of life. It's a hidden place that you don't see. It's pulled away in solitude, away from the world. And so the fact that she was at the hospital and that her best friend died, we have this full moon ruled by Venus, very feminine energy, supposed to be exalted, but remember it's a lunar eclipse, right? And Halloween is a time to remember our beloved dead. And Jenny was such a sweet person. She was beautiful. She had long dark hair. She was very much a nature girl. She had a green thumb and she loved animals and being out in nature. She would be the friend that would invite you to go hiking. Hiking is not my thing, okay? Like my kids love to hike, but she was very adventurous when she was younger. And she had such a free spirit, She was an extremely beautiful person. And it was sad that she had to pass away so young. In her chart, Taurus was the fourth house. And actually, because I looked all this up, I had to investigate this whole evening because it was a strange, chaotic, highly energized night that we all shared with one another from different locations. But Taurus was Jenny's fourth house, which is your home, your root, and your family. And her moon was also Taurus. So Jenny had a 24-degree Taurus moon. And the lunation that night, the full moon hit at 26 degrees, you guys. So her moon, she was having a lunar return when she passed. And we often think of the moon as our mothers. And there was so much feminine energy this night. Her friends are with her. And the moon is her mother's moon, So I do believe, and I want to believe, and I will believe that her mother came to get her, because suffering is hard. It's hard to watch people suffer, And she was sick for a while, and no one wants to die young, I wouldn't want to die young either. But there's a mix of emotion that comes with a death after someone is sick. And I know that because I watched my father die in pain. Okay. Well, he didn't die in pain. I made sure he didn't. That's the whole point, though. I had to decide, and it was hard, and I made sure I wasn't the only one that decided. But at the same time, what do you do? It's hard. Our beloved dead Jenny, she was a sweet girl, and she should be remembered. She's a Virgo with the Taurus moon. Earthy girl, see? Magical and very full of nature. And so in my situation, the girls had 12th house Taurus for Christina, 4th house Taurus for Jenny. And I might add that ancient astrologers sometimes saw the 4th house, or rather the IC, as a place of ending, because it's associated with where we come from, which is where we return to. And it rules things like ancestors and our family, and where, our base, our root. And so in a way, you could say the moon returning to her moon in the 4th house near the IC could have been her returning home to her mother. And that's how I would like to think of it. In my situation, Taurus is my 6th house. And the 6th house is associated with your health, your routine, your mission in life, and the work that you do. It's a working house. 2, 6, and 10 are all associated with work. And so, but I think in this situation, it had more to do with my health, right? And I got lucky because the Taurus moon, the exaltation worked in my favor. Because without this situation, without this chaotic night of blood transfusions, I would not have known what was wrong with me. And it got so bad, even on medication, from this point on, I had doctors. I got a doctor. I got a prescription. I got checkups. I got a schedule for surgery, right? And so I was on the right path. I got in a good routine, or I don't even know if you can call it a routine. I did get into a routine with medicine, right? But it did put me on a path towards being more healthy. And it was strange how it was like 5 months to process all of this until I got surgery, because that's usually an eclipse. The effect of an eclipse, clears up after about 6 months. So, and people look at eclipses differently. Sometimes people think it starts 3 months before and it ends 3 months after. Some people think it's before. Some people think it's all after. I don't know. All I know is that in my situation, the ecliptic energy that caused all that chaotic, you know, bloody moon energy, it was rectified by March 14th of 2022. And so I think the exalted moon worked in my favor in my 6th house to kind of push that along and get it started. Taurus season is fixed spring. That's when it's visibly warmer. The sun is sunnier. The earth is awakening. It's moist. You see plants growing. It's a very fertile time of year. And so I would like to think that that was my renewal in some way, because when I had my surgery, I recovered and I felt like I got a second life. I appreciated what it felt like to be able to breathe without struggling, to be able to lift things, to be able to just participate in life and not lay in bed and die slowly. It was an extremely traumatizing experience because it was prolonged and I had ignored it for so long that it was kind of severe in that situation. And it reminds me that the Taurus full moon, I think the message of this moon has a lot to do with women's health, taking care of ourselves, and also looking for supportive friends to help us in any situation that we have to go through, even a bloody beaver moon like I did. And, in the situation of friends, all these women who came together, who gave each other comfort. And we talk about I talk to all of my girlfriends about our health and how we feel. It's like, how are you feeling? Because we're all going through transitions. The moon is a very physical luminary, right? It has much to do with our physical bodies. In medical astrology, they look at the moon when they're looking at like a lot of physical stuff. And so the moon is a manifesting type of energy for us. So the Taurus moon, ruled by Venus, would very much be associated with the health of women in our reproductive systems, right? Our fertility, but also the health of our reproductive organs, because we have more organs than men. We are more than men physically. And I mean that in a sense, we have more organs. We're a little more complicated. I think they would agree to that. But I don't want to digress into that. I will say that it got worse before it got better in my situation, even though I had a clear path to my health. My pharmacy, I don't know what their game is, but I had to switch pharmacies because they would do things like, I had a prescription for a hormone that helped me to not bleed to death, okay? And I would go fill this prescription, and this pharmacist would be like, would call it birth control very loud in front of everyone. And I corrected her and I was like, it is not birth control. If you want to refer to it, you can call it by its name, and just the way, anytime I went to get a prescription of hormones, she would be so difficult about it. And you know what's going on in our country with judgment and people judging anything that has to do with augmentation or not augmentation, but like gender affirming care, because it's kind of gender affirming care if you think about it, because it's hormonal. But anyway, she messed up my prescription, did not order it when I had a prescription, a weekly or bi-weekly prescription. I don't remember which one because it was a fog. That whole time I was walking around in like a dream-like state because I had like a hemoglobin of 3, So anyway, what happened was, because of that delay in getting my medicine refilled, I fell back into bleeding very heavily, probably like a week before my surgery. And I almost died. Like, I was scheduled for a blood transfusion, but when I got there, I was in such bad shape. Like, I was actually gray. And they were like, no, you put her in the emergency room. And then they admitted me to the hospital, and I had to stay overnight and get like 4 bags of stuff. I had to get like iron. I had to get like blood. It was a whole bunch of stuff that I had like 3 IVs going. It was nuts. My body started to shut down. It was like shaking uncontrollably. I couldn't control my temperature. I was like under temperature, and I was hysterical. I was like hyperventilating and freaking out because I felt like I was dying, you guys. It was scary. Like the most scary thing I ever experienced, even more so than birth. I mean, I didn't even get to go to Jenny's memorial because I was so weak. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't go anywhere. I could barely get out of bed. So it was the most horrible time that I ever went through as far as health goes. But it all ended up okay, you know. And what's funny is that the Taurus full moon is always around the time that I make my appointment with my doctor. So this is like, you know, it reminds me of, you know, what was going on in 2021, and how far I've come with my health and how my body has changed as a woman. You know, I had to get rid of organs, okay? And I'm going through menopause. I'm going to admit it. Like I wasn't right after I had my surgery. I think I still had a couple eggs, you know. But then last year in March, my grandmother died. And I think that it triggered my menopause, because I was very depressed and I was very sad and I'm still sad. I'm not as depressed as I used to be. I'm starting to understand the whole life death thing in a very, it's a deeper, more meaningful type of way. And learning that you have to live with loss. You know, you have to live with pain sometimes but also we have the memories, all the good memories of the people who we love. And this time of year is very important for us to remember them, to talk about them, to tell their stories. Like I have so many grandma stories. It's a beautiful thing. But I just hope that the women who listen to this remember, do you need to go see the doctor? Are you feeling okay? Because it's important to talk to your friends about your health. It's important to have soundboards and support when it comes to taking care of the important things in life, like ourselves. We are the most important thing in our lives, because how are we going to be there for other people if we don't take care of ourselves? So I hope that the Taurus full moon is a reminder. Remember the 5th of November to, you know, check in with yourself, go to the doctor, and pay attention to the changes in your life and in your body as a woman. And I hope you enjoyed this story. It was a little intense, but it's what it was. And the Taurus full moon on November 5th of 2025, the ruler Venus will be at the anaretic degree. So there might be some things ending with this full moon and change occurring from that last degree of Libra, jumping into the first degree of Scorpio, where she's in her fall there. And so, the vibe of Venus is going to change a lot. So whatever culmination comes with the full moon on the 5th of November, be resigned to change, be resigned to a new phase of whatever desire nature Venus is, having in your own specific life. And I hope you guys are having a great Halloween. Stay safe. I'll catch y'all later. Bye.